Hey guys, welcome back to another Friday Live. And today is going to probably be a replay because we didn't get a chance to actually do the full video on Friday, but we're going to do the video nonetheless, and you'll be able to get those savings that we talked about in the previous video. And so today we have a special guest. His name is Ronnie King, and he is with OneSource Insurance Brokers. And so, how you do? First of all, how you doing, Ronnie, on this live?
I'm I'm doing well. And how about yourself, Cedric?
I'm doing well as well. And so today, Ronnie, what we want to do is we want to inform the public that's looking at this particular video about the things that they should be looking at when they are homeowners and they are looking to, one, make sure that they got adequate coverage, and or two, make sure that they're not overpaying. I know sometimes people are sitting in these policies that they're being overcharged for, but they just don't have no idea because they just don't look at it. And so, Ronnie, with the audience, can you please give these guys a background, let these folks know who you are?
Yes, as Cedric said, I'm Ronnie King. I'm a broker, which is different from a captive agent. And I've been in the insurance industry since about 2020. So going on about 6 years now.
Gotcha. And Ronnie, what made you switch over to this type of career?
Well, so I was in education before that, and I was a school administrator for 25 years, retired in 2019, and insurance has always been a passion of mine since the 90s, but I never followed up with it because of the fact that, I was working as a school administrator. And so since my retirement, the opportunity came around for me to, start a new career and continue to be able to educate and protect people. So I got into the insurance industry, and but it's gone well.
Perfect, perfect. And so, Ronnie, me and you have many of phone calls here, and um, we talked about a lot of what's going on in today's world, where a lot of the insurance companies have jacked up some of their rates, and sometimes these folks didn't, or I guess some of the homeowners don't know that the rates have been increased until they get their new monthly statement, and they realize that they're now paying an extra few $100 for the mortgage. And so some of these questions, Ronnie, we're gonna go over, kind of speaks to a lot of the stuff, and hopefully, these folks that's listening can find a solution to their problem, and at the end, reach out to you and have you do an evaluation of their coverages. Is that fair?
That is fair, and I look forward to it.
Perfect. Perfect, perfect. And so one of the things we want to start off is talking about like saving money on homeowners insurance. And I know this, it may or may not happen, depending on the policy. It depends on the age of the house, the roof, and all these things, or if you add additions and stuff like that. And so one of the questions people have is what is the most common ways homeowners are overpaying for their homeowners insurance?
Yes, great question. So a few things would cause a homeowner to overpay with their insurance. One of the things is failing to update your policy. You, as a homeowner, would want to update your policy at least, every year or once a year. And if you haven't shopped around, and we know that, some people are loyal to their agent and, therefore, are not shopping around, it is highly recommended that you shop around to see if there are, savings out there for you. Then the next thing is carrying unnecessary coverages. You want to check, your your policy and the coverages that you have to determine if you have anything that's unnecessary. If you've made home improvements, so say for instance you've updated your roof, there is a huge potential savings there, and you need to let your agent know. If you've done electrical work, plumbing work, heating and cooling, you want to inform your agent. If you've added any kind of additions to the home, decks, um, you know, garages, or what have you, you want to inform your agent. And then last but not least, you want to make sure you have an understanding about what is the difference between replacement cost and your actual home value. So
Right.
those are things that you want to take a look at to determine if you're overpaying.
Absolutely. And so you kind of spoke into this a little bit about, how often somebody should shop their homeowners insurance, and basically you're saying at least once a year, right?
Yep, at least once a year.
Mhm. And so for those that's been sitting out there with coverages from 10 plus years ago, you definitely want to get those folks in because they are severely overdue for an evaluation.
I would definitely agree to that for sure. Yes.
And so, what are some of the biggest factors, Ronnie, when it comes to your insurance premium?
Yeah, so some of the factors that go into whether or not you have a premium that is workable is looking at one, you should also look at your deductible, because the premise these days is the higher the deductible, the lower the premium. However, though, I get it that people are wanting to have a low deductible, but that also comes with a higher premium. So you want to take a look at that. The next thing is you want to also take the opportunity to look at bundling your auto with your home. There are carriers that will also give you discounts for auto, home, and if you have toys like motorcycles, ATVs, or what have you, you can look at bundling those policies together to produce a lower premium. But now I will say that that doesn't always work out, but I would definitely look into doing that just to make sure. The other things that factor into your premium is your credit score, your insurance score, and then the number of claims that you've made, uh, uh, you know, uh, against your home or losses. So those are other factors that impact your premium.
Right. And so I want to touch on that a little bit, Ronnie, because you said two things at the end that was key is the amount of claims that a person is doing on their homeowners insurance, and I know contrary to belief, I know that we pay homeowners insurance because in case something happens, right? That's the reason why we
Yeah.
pay for any insurance. But the insurance companies don't want you if you're going to always file claims too. So it's kind of like that double-edged sword. You're paying these guys in case something happens, and then if it does happen, you have to weigh in if you want to have these guys come fix it. Because now, if you have too many claims, especially in a short duration of time, then they might look at you as somebody that's being, very risky, so to speak. So that, and I'm assuming that probably would help with that, with raising your premium up if you have too many claims.
Yeah. So, when we talk about claims, most definitely wouldn't want you not to file one. However, though, be smart about filing one. So what am I saying? You want to file a claim that makes sense for you to file. So should let's say something small happened in your home. And we've had cases like this. Something small happened in the home. It may have been, may have cost the homeowner $1,500 to $2,000. And that individual went out and made a claim on that $2,000. Well, when the smoke cleared and the deductible was brought into question or brought into the scenario, their deductible was 1,500, and the insurance company only paid 500. Well, that's a small payment, from the insurance company. And obviously you as the homeowner, you're paying a much larger amount. So in this particular scenario, the question becomes, did that make sense to file that type of claim? And as your agent, I would tell you not to, file small claims. And if you are questioning whether to file, I would encourage you to reach out to your insurance agent first to determine or at least talk it through and to see if it makes sense. But when you file small claims, they do mount, and there's a great chance, that your premium will increase, and definitely could increase when you go to a different carrier. And a lot of people don't know that claims sit out there from anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and that is impactful throughout
So
that whole time period.
absolutely. And so, basically to sum it all up, just be very responsible with your claiming because, something, if a guy has a $1,500 deductible and he has a $2,000 expense, it's like the insurance company is barely paying anything. But however, it's a claim against your policy, which now goes with you regardless of how much they spent out. So yeah, I definitely understand. And so, one of the biggest things, or I guess another question I should ask is, what are some simple changes homeowners can immediately lower their insurance costs?
Well, one of the first ones would be, to look at bundling.
Okay.
That's bundling your auto and your home, and if you got toys or what have you. So look at bundling. The
Okay.
next immediate change would be looking at your deductible. If you have a small deductible, let's say, 1,500 or what have you, look at raising that up to 2,500, and then also look at increasing your wind hail deductible also, so that can assist in lowering your premium. So
Mm-hmm.
those are probably the two most immediate um, changes that you can make to impact your premium on a monthly basis and yearly basis.
Gotcha. And so, another question we have is, how does build bundle? Well, I guess we just answered that question about bundling the policy because basically you said that can help you save that money. One thing I was going to add to that is sometimes maybe people might have too much coverage. Like let's say, they they have enough money to replace their house twice, and they're paying for it because they're obviously you got to pay for that type of coverage. So I guess, can you speak to making sure that you have the right amount of coverage as well?
Yes. So that goes back to the policy review.
Hmm.
So you want to go and talk to your agent, your future agent, or whomever, and have them review your current policy to determine if there are if to determine if you are overpaying or what have you. The next thing is determining whether or not your policy is based on replacement cost versus your property value. Because it should be based on replacement cost. And, and your agent, should include you in that process and, asking you, certain questions about the characteristics of your property. And you want to make sure that that's, being done to determine the actual replacement cost.
Gotcha. And so let's move on from the savings to understanding coverages most people get wrong. And so one question I have for you, Ronnie, is what does the standard homeowners insurance policy actual cover, and what does it not cover? And I know that this might be a little bit of a slippery slope because we can't go into everybody's policy, but for like a hypothetical, what is some of the things that people need to be paying attention to?
Yeah, great question. Awesome question. So, your policy is based on coverages. And you might see on your deck page, you may see coverage A, coverage B, coverage C, coverage D, coverage E, F. Uh, those are your basic coverages that every policy has. Now, if you have a HO6 policy or HO4 policy, some of those coverages may not be there. Case in point, other structure. That coverage may not be on the HO6 or HO4. A HO6 policy is a condo slash townhome policy. HO4 is dedicated to renters insurance. So you may not see other structures associated with those policies. But in general, you'll have a coverage A, and what that is, that's the dwelling. So that's pretty much the structure of the of your home. You'll see other structures other than, like I said, HO6, HO4, and that's like your sheds, detached garages. You'll see coverage C, which is associated with personal property. So a lot of people ask, what does that entail? And what I tell people is, if your home is held upside down and everything that falls out of that home, that's what we would call personal property. Otherwise, when you get ready to move in, everything that you bring into the house, that's what we call personal property. And then loss of use. Should you, in the event of a loss, end up having to leave that property while construction takes place, or what have you, that's the coverage that allows you to make that, be into a hotel or live elsewhere while your current home is being worked on. Personal liability, which is coverage E. That is the coverage that protects you should you invite me over and to eat or whatever, and I end up falling down the steps, and therefore I'm looking to hold you accountable for causing that fall. Um, and then coverage F is essentially medical payments to others. So I fell down the steps. I, broke my arm, what have you. Um, that's the initial coverage that kicks in for those medical bills.
And so,
So those are
and I
your
guess,
basics.
yep, and I was going to say that. So, making sure you're paying attention to the basics because, making sure you have enough coverage in each of those segments that you mentioned is probably going to be huge for future pasting. Because if somebody did come to your house and they fell down the stairs and they racked up these astronomical medical bills, you don't want to be liable for that. Um, so a number of things I'm thinking about, but I have another question: is how do you know if your home is underinsured or overinsured?
Yeah. So I mean, again, that's coming in and doing a review with your agent to assist in determining that. And if you feel like you need a second opinion, then that's where the shop around aspect of the conversation comes into play. So then that way you have you have an opportunity to see it from a different lens as to what your current coverages are and what they potentially will be with a different agent.
Yep. And so let's backtrack that 1 second, Ronnie, because that's
Yep,
where
yep.
your broker comes into play at, because you're not just tied into one insurance company. You have multiple companies that you can go and look through. So uh, for some of the people that's listening, Ronnie has the ability to look through a lot of different insurance cover companies to find the best coverage for you. And so, where most companies, if it was just the agent that worked for the company, he can only quote you what they offer because he don't have any other sources but the one that he has. But, Ronnie has multiple sources that he can basically refer you to. And so,
Uh,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say that yes, that is the difference between a broker and a captive agent. A captive agent is only able to provide quotes from the company in which they work for. Say, for instance, if it's a farmer's agent or if it's an Allstate agent, they are what we call captive agents. Me as an agent, I'm a broker, so I have let's say 20 different carriers that I work with. So I'll be able to provide you information from different carriers to evaluate your next policy. Uh, so what I tell people is I take the shopping out of your hands.
I guess that's a good way of looking at it. And so we touched on this a few times, Ronnie, but I just want people to understand the difference out here. And so when we talk about like replacement costs versus the actual value of your house, can you speak to that a little bit? Because, we mentioned it a few times earlier, but people might not understand like what that actually means.
Good question. So every home has a value. It might be 200,000 all the way up to $1 million uh, as far as value is concerned. However, though, just because it's $1 million home value wise, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to cost $1 million to replace it.
Hmm.
And insurance is based on what it would take to replace the home, not the value. And how do we determine that replacement cost? Well, we talk to you. So that's where the interview with the client comes is important because you have an idea of the characteristics of the home. We look at other sources like Zillow, um, Realtor.com, Redfin, and so on and so forth. And then from time to time, we may need to also contact the county also to get information. And once we get all of that information, we put that in what we call a replacement cost estimator, and that spits out, essentially what it will cost to rebuild your home in today's market. and that's analyzing labor and material. Now, some people may not know that your mortgage company wants to make sure that your property is insured at least, at minimum, up to 100%. However, though, your policy, homeowner's policy, may also contain an additional 25% of replacement costs. And so that means that your home is insured over the 100%. And, in the event that you run out of, in the event of a loss, of a total loss, and you run out of that 100% of coverage, that's where the additional 25% comes into play, so that the rebuilding of your home can take place without having to tax you, the client, for that additional cost out of pocket.
Right. And so, we don't see it very often, but it does happen where a home may be burned down, or some catastrophic things happen where you have to sit there and worry about, the actual replacement value that you may have, because you definitely want that to be top notch, because that's the money that you're going to give in case it happens. And so this segueing into like a little bit of risk protection, because basically I was going to ask you that same question. What happens in the event if a fire or storm, does happen? What does the homeowners need to do immediately?
Yeah, one of the first things you want to do is alert your agent. And then we want to, if outside of contacting 911, the next things would be to, contact your agent first. Don't contact me if that fire is going on. Contact 911 first. Let's get them, activated. But then, from there, let's, reach out to your agent, alert, him or her. And then, from that conversation, we go into reaching out to the claims department.
Got you. 'Cause I think that's kind of one of the biggest things, because it's a lot of new first-time home buyers out there, and they have no idea of how
Yep.
this stuff works. And I just want to make sure that, we give in everybody the adequate amount of information. And so the next question is, how can homeowners protect themselves from big out-of-pocket costs during the claim? This can be a iffy thing, but, if you have something to speak to that, you're more than welcome.
Yeah. So, I think that there are things that you can do um, ahead of time, in the event, of a loss. So, for instance, if you, when you start your policy, there are certain endorsements you can take a look at, like, for instance, matching. And what that is, it is coverage that is applicable to your roof, as well as your siding and windows, in the event of a wind, hail, storm. Um, Without that coverage, there's a couple of things, that come to play. That most people would not be happy with. So, for instance, like in my case, I've been in my house since 2016. Is almost 10 years now. So the shingles to my roof, they may not make that, type of shingle any longer. So without matching, in the event of a wind, hail, storm, um, I might be limited to what is available, and that may not be the same color shingle. So with the matching coverage, that means that the insurance company would have to, either, replace the whole entire roof, to make sure that the shingles do match. And the same thing goes for
Yep.
the siding. Should there's a hailstorm that comes through, and you get holes and so on and so forth in your siding. Um, that particular item may not be available, and that means that the insurance company would have to work to satisfy the colors due to the matching coverage. So
Right.
those are, some examples.
Absolutely. And, I think that's very important that you said that because, if you, well, I guess it helps the homeowner in two ways. One, if they can't find that shingle from 10 years ago, then you just got a whole new roof. If you don't have that coverage, then hopefully the part of your roof that blew off is in the back of the house because people are going to see the difference between the two. So, you know, good thing is that you mentioned that it created the awareness, so people will make sure that they get the matching coverage. And so,
Yep. And let me add one more to that.
sure.
As if in the event of a certain loss that has to do with water backup coverage,
Hmm.
you want to make sure you get water backup coverage. Now, I know that in some cases people are like, hey, my basement isn't finished, therefore I don't need water backup. Uh, Keep in mind, and I like to use me as an example. My basement isn't finished as well, uh, but I do use that basement to store uh, clothing, furniture. As a matter of fact, I have my workout uh, center down there. I have my entertainment family room down there. Even though it's not finished, it is set up like a very usable basement. So if
Okay.
you're like me, then you want to have water backup coverage because should you have a loss dealing with water backup, um, that's a total loss. Those items down there because you don't have that coverage. And not only do you need to have that coverage, you want to make sure you have adequate coverage because should you have the coverage, but it's not enough, then that additional expense comes out of your pocket.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, enough said. Um, so, what happens if your value of your house increases? Do you need to update your insurance policy? Is another question I have for you, Ronnie.
Well, what I would say is, if your value increases, at least give your agent a call and have the conversation about, why it increased. Because it may have increased because let's say you added on a patio. Let's say you added on a deck. Let's say you put an additional bathroom downstairs. Those are things that would cause your property to increase. However, though, if that information isn't communicated to your agent, then it's not on record should there end up being a loss and it may not get covered. So, you want to have the conversation, whether it's, every year or at the time that you complete an add-on or a renovation, if you will. You want to let that agent know that those things have taken place, and you want them to be accounted for uh, on your policy. The other thing you want to make sure that you inform your agent of is if you make security changes, cameras, you add an alarm system, what have you. You want to make sure that your agent is aware of that also, so that way that's accounted for on your policy also.
So if well, I know if you have like a alarm system, and then or if you install security cameras, that definitely is a ability to have some savings there, ain't it?
Yeah, it may not, and just keeping it real, it may not be super significant, but it's a savings nonetheless.
Okay, gotcha. And so, last question I got, and this talks about the long-term protection and wealth mindset. What advice would you give someone who wants to make sure that their family is protected if something unexpected happens?
Yeah. So the advice that I would give folks is, just what I've been saying throughout the whole conversation. Keep your policies up to date. Make sure that your line of communication with your agent is open, not closed, and check in from time to time, just to make sure that everything is adequately protected. Uh, Not for your peace of mind as well as your family. That's what I would.
Absolutely.
That's what I would give as a recommendation.
And so for, just like I said, for the people that's listening and they made it all the way through to this point, congratulations. You are more well informed than 35 minutes ago. And so, I was mentioning to Ronnie that, I have gotten a lot of calls about homeowners insurance, and we had a point in our, I guess we're in a point of time where the homeowners insurance rates have risen, and it could be a plethora of things. We ain't going to go down that path, but just having this conversation with Ronnie, if you haven't talking to your own personal insurance agent, Ronnie is definitely there to be able to help you out and answer those questions. I done sent Ronnie a lot of my clients, even if they had a few questions, and he was able to help some of them out. And so, Ronnie, what type of final thoughts do you have for those folks out there?
Yeah, final thoughts, I would say, I have, uh, opportunities to, shop around for you. And, I'm in the same basket as a lot of, people. We're looking for, uh, savings. But I would also add, to that, we're also looking for peace of mind. And that's where, having the appropriate coverages, come into play. Sometimes that adjusts the savings, but it allows you to be able to sleep on a nightly basis, and that's what I'm here to do to uh, try to create that for you as a client and agent.
Absolutely. I know you enjoy helping people sleep at night. So, knowing that, if something happens, they properly covered and they didn't have to think twice about that. So hopefully our guys got something out of this video. Thank you, Ronnie, for taking the time out of your day to help us educate more people. And with that being said, guys, we'll see you on the next video. Peace out.
Peace out.